Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, as usual, Alison McKenzie. Before talking about Cagliari Lazio, we have to spend a little bit of time to talk about Pino Wilson, Alison McKenzie, because the captain of the first Scudetto of Lazio in the 1974 has died yesterday. So we did a podcast already. So if you want to listen about that incredible football team that won the first Scudetto for Lazio, you can find it on Lazio Lounge. But Alistair, let's go back a little bit and talk about the importance of Pino Wilson, the captain of that crazy team of managed by Tommaso Maestrelli.
Yeah, it's such sad news. I mean, he is one of these figures who I think in the club's history he towers above other people. I mean, you know, there are certain landmark names, I guess, over the history of Lazio, you know, the likes of Silvio Piola and Giorgio Chinaglia, and he's right up there as being one of the most important. I mean, it wasn't just the year around the Scudetto, you know, he was part of that team that actually came up from Serie B out of nowhere and kind of went on to win this, as you mentioned, this totally extraordinary league title, probably one of the most amazing title stories that's ever taken place in Italy, to be honest. And yeah, it feels it's not very nice, you know. Obviously we were on a bit of a high after the weekend win, and it was horrible to read about it yesterday, because you know, I think I'm sure for you, because you've got generations above you who pass down stories about Lazio, which is something that I haven't had. But even as a foreign Lazio fan, growing up reading about the club and learning about its history, Pino Wilson is one of these names that you can't avoid. He's just absolutely synonymous with the club.
Yeah, he was the captain of that team, and as you mentioned, he arrived 2 years before with Giorgio Chinaglia, pretty much from nowhere, both of them, and were able before to promote Lazio to Serie A. And the year before, we were really close to win the Scudetto. We lost it at the last day. And then the year afterwards, the miracle, winning the Scudetto for Lazio. Giorgio Chinaglia left the club after a couple of years. He stayed with the club. He had some issue. Everybody remembers that. But, you know, he's always was considered a captain, one of the leader of that team, because one of the things is that, yes, he was the captain, he had the armband, but there were so many leaders, so many incredible characters in that team that he was one of them, right? We said it in that podcast. The team was pretty much divided in two. There was the Chinaglia team, and then there was the Martini team. So Wilson was one of the best friends of Chinaglia, so he was on that side. And they were pretty much the friendly match on Saturday were even harder than the Serie A matches, because the rivalry was so big. And it's football very far away from the modern football, but it was, you know, romantic style, very, very, very different, but still very amazing, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing as well. I remember when I first started reading about this team being like, Wilson, was there a guy called Wilson playing for Lazio in the 70s? And, you know, he's like Chinaglia again, you know, actually he was born in Darlington in north of England, and to an English father, Italian mother, I think. And obviously moved over very young and stayed over here. But just remember always being surprised by that aspect as well, of a Lazio player called Wilson. But it was quite funny. I mean, I read there was an interview today in Gazette, I think it was, with Galaskelli, another member of the team, and he was saying, you know, they asked him about the fact that Wilson was captain, because I think it's easy to jump to the conclusion that being captain of this team, he must have been a guy who was capable of, helping both sides of these clans cooperate, but apparently not at all. He was very much part of one side. And I think Carlos Queiroz said he wasn't even friends with him until the last 20 years, basically. They basically didn't speak to each other while they were at the club together or afterwards for many years, which tells you a lot about how incredibly divided that atmosphere was, and how amazing the job of Maestrelli was to create somehow a winning team out of this chaos. But Wilson, I think you mentioned the fact that he was the best at cooperating with referees and kind of trying to help the team in that way. Kind of an on-field captain rather than an off-field captain, perhaps.
Yeah, and the funny thing, as we mentioned in that podcast, is that the team was divided, as you mentioned often in these 5 minutes. But on the Sunday match, they were really one team. Nobody could touch any Lazio player because the two groups were united on the pitch and they fought for each other, and that's the secret of this team. Like Giorgio Chinaglia, Wilson, I thought, deserved more caps in the Italy team. But coming from Lazio, this was pretty hard because at that age, pretty much all the players were from Juventus, Inter, and Milan. And people think he wasn't a great defender, but he was. He really was one of the best central defender of that period in Italy. And yeah, one of the biggest regrets is that he didn't have that many caps for the national team as Giorgio Chinaglia. So he was really a great player. And the sad thing, Alistair, is that we are slowly seeing all these players, former players, and as we were mentioning before, he was still young. We are losing all of these heroes for Lazio fan so early in the stage. Giorgio Chinaglia, Pulici, Frustalupi, and so on. It's really a pity and a very sad moment for all the Lazio fans of my generation, even though I never saw them playing because I was very young. Well, I was born the year when Lazio, after we won the Scudetto, so I didn't have the chance to see them. But here in Rome, everybody talk about them as heroes, as legend, because the last Scudetto Lazio won. After that came 34 years after that, so there was a long time waiting, and the legend of this hero grow and grow.
Yeah, and I hope and I expect there will be tributes paid and at the next game or choreographies or whatever. I expect there'll be some sort of memorial. I mean, it's a big loss, and big loss for Italian football as well. Generally, it's been quite nice to see that there has been a recognition of that. I think more widely. I don't know if you agree with that or not. Do you feel like it's been acknowledged widely enough across Italy as like not just a great Lazio player, but a great Italian football figure who's passed?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say that. Yeah, I thought. Well, not as Giorgio Chinaglia. Obviously, he was more a sort of famous player and manager as well, and president as well. So, but yeah, I was surprised to see that recognition from international newspaper and TV channels, and so that. One thing that the fans are thinking to ask is, he was playing with a red armband, so it would be cool if next Lazio match against Lazio Venezia, I think, is if Lazio will play, the captain of Lazio, Ciro Immobile, would come down with a red band. I know it's prohibited, which is silly, but it's something that would make a lot of sense and would be very nice. I think very cool for Lazio.
Well, Papu Gomez used to have all sorts of crazy armbands at Atalanta, so I don't see why not.
I think that was before the change of Italy has a incredible way of setting useless rules, like the armband has to be all the same, which doesn't make sense at all, right?
The important things, yeah.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, that makes Serie A much better, right? All the armbands similar with written Capitano, that nobody cares, right? So yeah, let's hope that they allow Lazio to do this next Monday, because we are playing Monday. Said that, remember we did a podcast a while ago about Lazio of the first Scudetto. So go and catch it. I will put the link in the description afterwards. But Alistair, I think we have to talk even about Cagliari Lazio. A very important win, very well matched, very well played match from Lazio. So positive sign from Saturday night, right?
Yeah, wow. I mean, I was really impressed. We spoke in the week building up to this about the fact that it's an obvious banana skin game. Cagliari going into this in a good run of form. They're a team who have a hell of a lot to fight for at the moment because they're right down there battling for relegation. They're at home. It's a fixture we've had problems with in the past. Caicedo's 98th minute equalizer, whatever it was. So wow, I mean, I was really, really impressed with not only the ease with which they got the result, but the manner with which they played. I think some of the slickest football we've seen at times, with the passing and the movement, but also some of the smartest. The thing that I liked the most was it was a combination of those kind of slick passing moves and a seemingly like a willingness to defend as well as a team. And I think it's one of the most balanced performances we've got from Lazio under Sarri so far.
Yep, definitely. And let's not forget that Cagliari was one of the hottest team in the Serie A at the moment, because they were able to draw against Napoli, beat Torino. I mean, they were coming from an incredible run. Mazzarri is very difficult. Let's not forget that the first match as Cagliari coach was against Lazio, and we drew 2-2 at home. I don't know. Keita didn't start. I thought that was a good sign, right? Because I was very confident that he would have scored at least one goal against us, as he usually do. But I thought, especially the first half, we played great football. I thought all the team come together, really, really showing that Napoli's defeat was not a coincidence, but not a terrible sign. Again, against Napoli, Lazio played well, deserved to do better, but came out short. And it was good to score immediately, Alistair. I thought that was a big boost, because when you're playing a team like Cagliari that love to defend and counterattack, if you score immediately, they have to change plan, and that creates a lot of problem.
Yeah, and I think that Sarri showed this kind of flexibility in his approach. I think where he did want the team clearly to apply pressure pretty quickly to try and, like you say, get that early goal to try and break the Cagliari resistance a bit. But once we're in that position, 2-0 at half time, they didn't really need to play that way anymore, and they didn't so much, and they were willing to kind of soak that up and hit on the counter attack more. And they should have scored another 2 goals, really. If we look at those chances, the 2 kind of 4-on-1s or 3-on-1s that they created, and they didn't score either of them. But that's not a coincidence. That's how the game worked out. I believe that Sarri would have planned it that way. And it goes to show this Lazio team is capable of doing both these things. It's capable of controlling possession and keeping the ball and working its way through teams, and it's also capable of soaking up pressure and hitting counterattacks. And yes, we will have more challenging opposition than Cagliari, but at the same time, it's nice to see that the progression that we noted without getting the results in those games against Porto and Napoli, once you do play a lower level of opposition, they made it look easy. And like I say, it's not an easy game. That it really isn't. So I think it's really encouraging for going forwards, especially now with a week between each game. And it does feel like progress is happening.
Yeah, it was encouraging. And Alistair, do you know, considering the last 7 matches of Serie A, who has the best defense?
Patrick.
Well, Patrick played for the team with the best defense, but yeah, Lazio incredibly has the best defense, and considering the last 7 matches, which is surprising.
Really?
Yeah, we allowed 3 goals, 2 against Napoli and one against Udinese. I think Milan have conceded 6 goals, so it's incredible if you remember how we started the season, right?
Well, yeah, and that's probably something that Sarri deserves the most credit for since the turn of the year in January, where we were kind of going crazy about the idea of not being able to reinforce this defense so clearly needed it. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden it doesn't need reinforcing just because they're now playing better, but he's found a way of solidifying what he's got. I do think as well, Acerbi coming back yesterday made a difference. I think he played pretty well considering how
Yeah.
long he's been out. And that partnership with Felipe, if they can get a bit of consistency together, will make all the bit of difference in the world. So yeah, I mean, that's really encouraging, but it's the blend I liked. They didn't look too worried about anything defensively, but at the same time they created a number of chances. I thought Alberto was really good. It was nice to see him kind of stepping up, which he's been growing, and yeah, one of his better games of the season probably on Saturday. And yeah, there's just danger throughout the team. There's the opportunity to do this. If they give them a solid base to launch this attack, when you've got Milinkovic, Savic, and Alberto, and Pedro, and Zaccagni, and Immobile, and Philippe Anderson, the rest of them, you're going to hurt teams. So yeah, it's looking really encouraging.
First goal of the year for Luis Alberto against Cagliari. He missed so many chances between Napoli and Porto that I didn't think he was the first goal of the year. I thought he scored already, but it was encouraging to see him playing, and I thought it was nice to see Philippe Anderson passing the ball in front of the goalkeeper. I don't know how many players would have done that. And I seeing that goal, I thought, oh my God, he's offside. Instead of, luckily he wasn't.
Yeah, and also I think the position Alberto was in was the same position he had been in when he missed against Porto, and I think maybe Napoli as well. So
yeah,
God, please don't. No, yeah, so that was really good. Philippe Anderson as well seems to have turned a corner a bit recently. His goal was incredible. Again, just he made that look so easy. The way he kind of took three defenders into the game suddenly, and it made it look, like it wasn't anything special. And it's almost like his attitude to finishing that chance and just dribbling through two defenders and just passing it into the goal makes it look like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good goal. But when you watch it on repeat, you're like, my God, that's incredible that he had the calmness and composure to do that, which isn't something that he's always the best at.
yeah. It looked like the game was finished, right? Okay, he whistled already. Let's put it in the goal. Instead, it wasn't, and it was a great finish. And again, when Felipe Anderson play like that, what can you say? I mean, he's phenomenal. The problem is he's not consistent. But as you mentioned, in the last month or so, he started playing great football again. So that's really encouraging, especially because Pedro is a little bit down. He's struggling to recover from the injury. Zaccagni, I didn't like that much Zaccagni performance against Cagliari, but still was decent. But I think we have to spend a little bit of time to talk about Stefan Radu. I thought against Cagliari he was phenomenal, and the last 3-4 matches of Radu were great. And it's funny because what was it? Till the Verona match, he hadn't played a single minute, and then he was benched again. He never had a chance, and now he's in the starting 11. I think he deserved to be there because he's playing great.
Yeah, and I was thinking that when I was watching it, how many times has Stefan Radu been written off as, he's too old, he's finished, or he's too injury prone. There's no role for him here. But I mean, God, he's a player with real quality, because the ability to step into a left back position in a back four at this age, having not done that for, I mean, I don't know when he last played in this position, maybe 2010 or something. But yeah, and he's been doing really well there. We know now that Sarri values him, and he talked about how Radu can even play as a midfielder. He's that good on the ball. But it is a bit mystifying that he wasn't playing earlier this season. Maybe Sarri himself undervalued him because of his age or whatever. But I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I'm sure we're guilty of having done that, and perhaps with Lucas Leiva as well. I think Lucas as well, another player
Yeah,
who was easy to write off relatively recently when Cataldi came back into the team, but he's shown his quality. He's shown he's worthy of a place in this team too. And clearly these guys aren't the future of Lazio, and they're not the guys who are going to fly the Sarri flag going forward. But it makes a hell of a difference when the squad depth is as bad as it is, to have two of your more experienced leaders leading by example. And we know that's the way that Radu likes to lead. He didn't want the captaincy. He doesn't really want that leadership responsibility, but he kind of is a leader anyway, just by
definitely.
performing the way he does.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, even the performance of Acerbi was encouraging. And again, we're talking about an experienced player who didn't start very well the season, but I think against Cagliari he played great. So having Leiva, Radu, and Acerbi for this end of the season is really, really promising. We talked about the older guys. Let's talk a little bit about Luca Romero, because this morning, Alistair, I was shocked. He's been called for the Argentina national team. It's just a pre-called list, so we don't know if he will be making it for the how many do they call, 22, 25? But that's an unbelievable sign, right, Alistair? Who could expect that?
Yeah, Romero and Messi leading the line at the World Cup for Argentina, perhaps. Yeah, it's kind of surprising, really, considering, well, his lack of game time, but also just how young he is. There's about 3 different youth teams he could play for in Argentina. Yep. Still before the senior team. So yeah, that's surprising. Obviously, I think it's a signal of the regard he's held in. Interestingly, in Argentina, they're clearly keeping a close eye on him, and probably think that it'll help him to get into that squad, to be working with those players, to be training at that level, to be getting the advice from the likes of that guy who plays for PSG. I've forgotten what his name is.
Sergio Ramos.
And why not? It's a bit of a change of pace from training with Patrick to training with Messi, but they can both teach him different things and make him the complete player. So yeah, very promising.
Yeah, and when he came in Saturday, he showed he has composure. He doesn't seem that young, right? He seemed like he already played in that situation. He was good enough, especially because, I mean, for the people who didn't watch the match, Lazio is unbelievable in created issues. So we made 5 substitution, and Maruzic decided to get a red card for a stupid yellow card, for a stupid handball. And 2 minutes later, Radu collapsed with an injury. And 1 minute later, Ciro Immobile goes down. At a certain point, we were 11 against 8. I mean, yeah, it was nearly finished. But, if you're playing 3 men down, anything can happen. And we had Luca Romero in as well. So, Leiva started playing central defender. Luis Felipe moved on the right. And Luca Romero was pretty much the winger. So I was a little bit scared, to be honest, in the last 4-5 minutes.
Yeah, they somehow end up, forfeiting the game by only having 6 players available and lose 3-0 instead of winning 3-0. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's hard to read into these kind of cameos. There's only so much you can really kind of read into the actual ability of the player. What I would say about Romero, though, is Sarri's said before that there's a big gap when people talk about him and Raul Moro, that there's a big gap between being 17 and being 19. And he's right. I mean, I think physically as well as mentally, that's 2 years worth of development that Moro's got ahead of him. But Moro looks more, to me, I mean, he's still small, but physically he doesn't look any less athletic than Moro does, probably even more so, I would say, than Moro does, because Moro looks very slight and light on the ball. So I think that will come with time, that he'll develop more physically. But I think that the fact he's being he's being bled in slowly into this team, and I think that's in my mind a good way of handling this situation, because there's no rush. There really is no rush. And yes, we get frustrated from time to time where games like this, you say, we're winning 3-0, 2-0. Why not give the young guys a chance? And so, yeah, it's nice to see him get a chance, even though it was, like you say, kind of emergency while he was on the pitch.
Talking about getting a chance, I tweeted when we were 3-0 up. Is it time for Kamenovic to finally come in? No, it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Will he ever get a chance?
Well, I mean, it's just the same thing, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to believe that Sarri really thinks he's good enough, because if he had thought he was good enough, he would have been in the squad from the start of the season. I mean, surely. It's hard to not come to that conclusion unless he's seen something in that time that we don't know about. But yeah, I mean, surely give him a chance at some point. The problem is now that every game's important. You've already seen that Philippe Anderson and others having that classic message of every game's a cup final now for the Champions League. And so it's going to be difficult to really find opportunities to test things. Although obviously he'll have more chance in training at least, which is one thing.
Yeah. Do you still believe in the Champions League? Because seeing Juventus playing so poorly but winning, I feel that it's nearly impossible for us.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, it's hard to say for sure, because yeah, I think Lazio, they do feel like they're in an upward trajectory, but I just feel like there's too much work to do. I think they've left themselves too big a gap, and the best we can probably hope for at this point is fifth. But I honestly still think a top six finish would be a good season for Lazio, considering everything we've been through. So if we can finish strongly, finish like we feel like we're a lot further along the line with Sarri ball than we were when we started, with the opportunity to then improve the squad, where hopefully even Iglitare can work out what the problems are in this team in the summer, then that wouldn't be bad for me at all. And I think it's good to see the players talking about the Champions League, though, because it shows a level of ambition. And I think it's good to aim high. They shouldn't be talking about winning the Scudetto probably, but they can at least talk about it, and it gives them a motivation, because otherwise it's quite easy to lose motivation at the run-in at the end of the season if you're just saying, oh, maybe we'll qualify for the Conference League. I mean, it's not exactly going to thrill people.
No, it's true. But, we are seeing Atalanta struggling in the last month or so. They have a game on hand, so they have a couple of points. They could be ahead of us of, 4 points. But, I saw them playing against Roma, and they were terrible. So I think Lazio and Roma could be fighting for the fifth spot. And then you have to see what happened with the Coppa Italia, because if one of the teams that goes in the Champions League wins it, then there should be one place more for in the league, right, for the Europe League. So maybe Lazio can still get in the Europe League instead of the Conference League. That would be a little bit of a problem, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I think that derby is always massive, but I think it's a really good test at this stage, I would say. That game is going to tell us quite a lot about where this team is, both in its development and in its mentality, because the big games have just been kind of small margins recently, but they've not managed to wrestle those margins in their favor. But I think if they can go into quite a big high-pressure derby, which is the away derby, let's not forget, so most of the stadium will be against Lazio, that is probably going to tell us quite a lot. We probably don't want to start thinking about this already. I know you don't like talking about it until you have to.
Yeah, too much pressure. And it's even true that Roma, last time they lost was 9th of January against Juventus in the league I'm talking about. So they're having a nice run. They're not winning a lot of matches, but at least they're not losing. So it's going to be interesting, even because usually Lazio arrive at the second part of the season tired, but that was with Simone Inzaghi, and we are seeing the same thing with Inter, right? We're seeing the team. Let's not consider the Salernitana game, but before that, we saw Inter very tired. On the other hand, we are seeing a Lazio, I don't want to see refreshed, but still with legs and able to play good football, to run for 95 minutes, which usually at this point of the season in the past we were really struggling.
Yeah, there is something quite funny about seeing Inter fans on social media getting really wound up saying, why is he not changing anything? He keeps using the same system and the same players and nothing's changing. And it's like, yeah, I know, we've been there.
That's Simone Inzaghi, right? Good and bad, it's Simone Inzaghi.
Yeah.
Alistair,
mostly good, but yeah, it's frustrating when it's not going well.
No, and I think Milan has a huge chance now, but we are Lazio Lounge. We're not talking about the other teams. So, do you have something else to add about the match?
Only that, it feels like we do this every 2 weeks, but there's another Ciro Immobile landmark to mention, that now he's equaled Silvio Piola's record of Serie A goals, 143, is it? Something like that. Crazy, really. I mean, what can we say? Apart from the fact that Silvio Piola is essentially kind of like almost as mythical as the Loch Ness Monster. Like, it feels like he wasn't even a real person because he was playing so long ago in such a different era. And yet Ciro has still managed to catch him, which, let's be honest, I'm not sure anyone thought that Piola would ever be caught, really.
No.
So it's incredible.
Yeah. Beppe Signori was the one that had a chance but couldn't stay longer for Lazio. So really the Ciro Immobile, it's simply unbelievable. And I say it again. I mean, if Ciro Immobile was playing for Juventus or Milan, the newspaper would be full of praise of Ciro Immobile. Instead, it looks like he didn't do nothing, and which is annoying, but nothing surprisingly, right?
Yeah. I mean, he is one of the great underrated strikers of our time, I think. Probably because of the Italy stuff, but we appreciate him, and in a way, it kind of maybe has worked to Lazio's advantage in a small way as well, because he's never even thought about leaving, because he knows how much he's loved and appreciated here, and he's almost like proving a point against everyone else by doing all this as well. So it's a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Yeah, and his agent last week said that there's no doubt he will finish his career with Lazio, which is good. So that's another good sign. Alice, I think we can wrap it up here, right? Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back, I don't think Monday, because Monday night Lazio is playing against Venezia, so probably it's going to be a Tuesday podcast. Again, you can listen to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, wherever. And if you want to support our channel, it's patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. Thank you again, Alistair.